Morning. Did everybody have breakfast? All right. Happy May the 4th. Happy Star Wars Day. So, today I'm going to be talking about React 18, the new features, some new concepts such as concurrency, automatic batching, transitions. We will be taking a look at how to update to React 18. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Shruti Kapoor, and I'm a staff engineer at PayPal now. Your girl got promoted! Thank you, that was unintentional. I'm a staff engineer at PayPal, and you can find me on the internet at shrutikapoor.dev, which I built with Vercel last week. You can also find me on Twitter at shrutikapoor08. I also send out newsletters. You can find it here. If you've been following me on Twitter, you probably already know what's coming up next that I already love, dev jokes. So what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you a question, and you can yell the answer out. And I've got dev joke stickers. OK, first question. Why was there no food at the developer conference?
Too many bugs. Why?
Say that again?
Too many bugs.
Too many bugs? I like that. That's very, very appropriate. Anybody else? We ran out of bites? That's nice. OK. Technical difficulties. It was a serverless conference. Don't worry, you still get your stickers. OK. What accommodation did the JavaScript developer request at the hotel? A sink? I like that. You get a sticker. Anybody else? A room with a view. All right, last one. Why do front-end developers eat lunch alone? Somebody said it? Because it's the front end of the table. We don't know how to join tables. All right, if you want more dev jokes, go follow me on Twitter. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about how to update to React 18. We'll talk about a few different features of React 18. And as a developer, if you do update to React 18, how does your code get affected? So first thing, let's talk about React 18. React 18 now ships foundational features such as concurrent rendering and automatic batching that provides capabilities such as suspense on the server. There are a few new APIs for library developers and server developers and client developers, which we'll take a look at today. Overall, the main theme of React 18 has been to remove janky experiences from the UI without the developer having to think too much about it. So as a developer, you can now think about what you want to do, and React takes care of how to do that. The overall theme has to bring performances for the UI-centric approach. So there are a few different features that we'll take a look at today, such as concurrent features, transitions, suspense on the server. We'll also talk about some out-of-the-box improvements in React 18, like automatic batching and better rendering performance. First, let's talk about how to update to React 18. So React 18 is now in production. It's a stable version. It was released this year in March. You can get it from NPM, or you can get it from Yarn. The way to get React 18 is just doing npm install React and React DOM from npm. At this point, if let's say that you have updated, you've installed React and React DOM, you may see a warning in your browser if you haven't done anything else so far. So let's say your package.json is updated, you'll see this warning in the browser. Basically, this warning is saying that you haven't added create root or hydrate root, and it'll just tell you to add that. And until you add that, your app will behave like it is React 17 app. So let's see how we can fix that. So what you need to do is find your index.js, where you use react dom.render, and update that to react dom.createRoot. And here's the code for how to do that. So let's say that this is your index.js file. You're going to find where you use react-dom.render. And instead of doing react-dom.render, we're going to actually create a root using react-dom.createRoot. And then we're going to render our app in that root. So now you may be wondering, what the heck is root? I'm root. Well, root is actually not a new concept, but this is how React uses, this used to be in the background, and it used to be opaque to the user. And this is how React updates the DOM tree. It makes all of the new features, such as concurrent rendering and automatic batching, available to you. And until you add that React root, it'll behave as though you haven't added any concurrent features yet, and you're still on React 17. So now let's talk about what's new in React 18. So here's a quick guide of all of the new features that are in React 18. There's a new concept of concurrency. Concurrent mode is deprecated. You may have heard of it. Concurrent mode basically meant that concurrency was in all parts of your app. With concurrent React, basically you pick where you want to have concurrency. So it's no more an all in or nothing. You can pick wherever you want to have this feature enabled. React 18 also introduces features such as automatic batching, which we'll look at in detail, transitions, suspense on the server, which you've heard about a lot yesterday, a few different APIs for library developers, client-side developers, server developers, such as createRoot, hydrateRoot, render to pipeable stream, and we'll look at it in detail. There's also new hooks like useID, use transition, use deferred value, and there's updates to strict mode, and strict mode has gotten stricter, so we'll look at that as well. If you've been using react-dom.render, that is now deprecated, and render to string is also deprecated. So first, let's talk about automatic batching. To understand automatic batching, let's consider an example from React Working Group discussion that Dan Abramov talked about, which is about cooking. So let's say that you want to make pasta, and you bring out a pot, and you put water in it, you put olive oil, you put salt, you get it boiling, you start dicing onions and garlic, and then you realize you don't even have pasta. So you run to the store, get pasta, come back, put it in the pot, start boiling, and then you realize you don't have pasta sauce. So you run to the store, get pasta sauce, come back, put it in your pot, start cooking pasta, and by the time you're done, your pasta looks like this. And on a bad day, the grocery store may look like this, which we've all seen last year, 2020. So basically, how can you improve that? You can improve that by making a grocery list, and when you go to the grocery store, get all the ingredients together. And that's automatic batching. It's making a list of grocery items so that you do all of these micro tasks together, so you don't have to keep doing this thing over and over again. So with automatic batching, React doesn't have to spend a lot of time rendering the same work over and over again when it can do it at the end of the micro task. So let's take an example here. So this is an event handler. So here you can see that there are three set states. We're doing is fetching, error, and form status. Before React 18, React always batched anything that happens in an event handler. So in this case, React looks at first set state, haven't rendered anything yet. Looks at the second, haven't rendered anything yet. Third, hasn't rendered anything yet. At the end of this micro task in an event handler, it will render the state and render it one time. This was before React 18 as well. Nothing changed here. What did not happen is that anything that happened outside of event handlers, like an async callback or a promise or a native event, that was not batched. So for example, here, let's say we're calling an API, something, and we're getting a promise back. We have three set states here. Is fetching, error, form status. What React used to do before is it'll look at the first set state, update it, re-render it. Look at the second one, re-render, third, and re-render. So at the end, we have re-rendered 3 times. So we've done the same work 3 times. Going forward in React 18, all of these state updates will be batched, even in event handlers. So it goes like this. React doesn't render anything. It only renders at the end of this micro task. So with React, all updates that happen even within promises or set timeouts will be batched. And that improves React's rendering performances because we don't have to keep doing the same work over and over again. It is given to you out of the box, but in case you do have problem after you upgrade to React 18, you can opt out of it using a function called flush sync. So give it a shot. If you have problems with your set states, rendering multiple with your set states giving you errors, you can opt out of it using function flush sync. So that was automatic batching. Now let's talk about concurrent React. So concurrency is actually a feature by which React can pause and resume rendering events to improve performance. Let's take a look at an example from working group discussion as well. So let's say that we have a conversation happening between two people, Alice and Bob. Typically in a synchronized conversation, you'd end the call with Alice and then call Bob. But what if the call with Alice is really long and there's waiting period and you're just like on hold waiting for them to come back? What if you could instead put Alice on pause, go talk to Bob because it's an urgent conversation, come back and talk to Alice? That's concurrent rendering. So basically, React can interrupt, pause, or resume any render in React 18 and in order to improve performance and in order to do any urgent updates that are needed. Before React 18, rendering was actually a single synchronous task and it could not be interrupted once it started. Concurrent rendering actually is not a feature, but it's rather a technical foundation that most features in React 18 are built on top of. But the good thing is that you as a developer don't need to think about it. It's behind the scenes, and you can focus on what you want to do, and then React takes care of how to do it. Concurrent rendering is cool for React because it helps React prepare new screens, especially in a case where, let's say you have tabbed away and you want to come back. So React can use a state that it previously had and restore from it. So once an update starts rendering, React can then pause it in the middle, continue later, or abandon it altogether. An example here would be, let's say you have like multiple tabs, you tab away. React now has, with the help of concurrent rendering, this thing called reusable state, where React can actually remove sections from the UI and add them back later whenever you tab back to that state. So it can reuse this previous state. You may have heard of concurrent mode. Concurrent mode is no longer part of React. Concurrent mode basically meant that you were using concurrency in all of your app, but with concurrent rendering, you can enable concurrent rendering in only the parts of app that you choose to. Okay, so that was concurrent React. Now let's talk about transitions. So transitions is actually how you can tell React to prioritize certain important updates, and you can mark the non-urgent updates as these things called transitions. Let's take a look at how that works. So let's say that I'm going to Google search React 18, and typically in an autocomplete field like this, you are typing, you have a user feedback of putting the character in, and you also have a feedback of the search form populating. So there's actually two feedbacks happening here. One is you putting the character in, and second is the feedback, the search form populating where you see your updates. So this was a fast computer, so it went pretty fast. But what if you have a slow computer? You still have two UI feedbacks to give to the user, but which one would you think is a more urgent one? Typing the letter, exactly. So basically what you want to let the user know is that as soon as they type a character, the character is displayed in the form. And so that is marked as an urgent update. The update of actually searching that query is a non-urgent update, and that is what is called a transition. So a good user experience will look something like this. We're typing in. We have a slow computer. We're typing in. And as we type in, we see the character, but we haven't searched yet because we have transitioned it. And that's how transition helps us. So in code, it looks kind of like this. You have an urgent state. You put it as is, no change needed. And then anything that is a non-urgent state, you put it inside a set transition, in a start transition. Now you may be wondering, so here's another example of how that works. So basically for React, the orange state, let's say, is a high priority update. The blue state is a transition. So for React, let's say that an orange state comes in, React will prioritize that, and the blue state comes afterwards. But if there's another orange state that comes in, React will stop the blue state and take care of the orange state because it's a higher priority update. So what if we want to do something when this transition is happening? We have something called use transition, which is a new hook. And with the help of this, you get two parameters, is pending and start transition. And you can use is pending to use like a loader state or anywhere you want to add that. You may be wondering where you can add start transition. There's two places I think that you can add start transition. One is where your app is doing a lot of slow rendering work. So maybe like you have a lot of data, like you have Jira, you have to display a lot of data on the screen. That's where start transition can help a lot. Another case where a lot of people think of using start transition is when the network is slow and you're making a call. That is not yet supported, but you can use libraries such as Relay that have this inbuilt in it because it needs suspense. Okay, so that was transitions. Now let's talk about suspense on the server. So suspense on the server in React 18 is now powered by code splitting as well. What that basically means is that let's say you have an app and a certain part of your app is really slow. Before React 18, you had to wait for the entire app to finish loading before you can ship the HTML. You have to wait for the entire rendering process to be done before you can ship that HTML over to your client. So before we dive into what React 18 introduces, let's do a brief recap of server rendering. So with the help of server rendering, basically what we let the user do is we create HTML on the server and we send it over to our client. And what that helps the user do is that this ships before any JavaScript or React has loaded. So user can see an input or user can see a UI much faster as opposed to rendering it on the client side. So it's a much faster process. But before React 18, we could not split one section of our component away, and we could not server render the rest of it and only do one section separately. So it was like an all or nothing thing. So let's say that one part of your app is slow, it slows down the entire app because you have to wait for the entire app to convert to HTML. But now with React 18, what you can do is wrap a component into Suspense, and this is called Suspense on the server. So basically, you can wrap a component in Suspense and tell React to wait for this component to load, but send the rest of the page. So you still send the rest of the HTML, and that component only gets like a loader state if you want to add a fallback spinner to it. But when that component is ready, React sends that HTML in the same stream, and all of this happens before any JavaScript is loaded, so it's super fast for the user. And they see the page, it decreases the time it takes for the user to see the first page. So basically, in summary, it means that one slow part of the app does not slow down the server rendering of the entire app. A user can see an initial HTML page early, and this is actually powered by code splitting on the server. So we talked about Suspense on the server. There are a few different changes that are introduced for React developers, both all server, client-side, and library-side. So let's take a look at them briefly. For server API changes, we have render to pipeable string for node environments and readable stream for edge environments. Render to string is now deprecated. New library APIs are useID, using external store, and use insertion effect. There are a few different client-side features. So if you are using render, you want to use create root. If you have unmount component at node, you want to use root.unmount. If you have React DOM.hydrate, you want to use hydrate root. Okay, so that was what's new in React 18. Now let's talk about if you do update to React 18, how does your code base get affected? We've tested a few different apps, and the code should work fine by the first install of React 18 and update to create root. Some components do behave slightly differently with concurrent rendering, and some components may require migration efforts. The good thing is concurrent rendering is only on in the parts of your app that you choose to, so you can choose which parts to turn it on into. Overall, I think the upgrade strategy you can use is you upgrade to React 18, npm install, create root and make sure that there is nothing breaking. Gradually start adding concurrent features. Use a library that powers concurrent features. You can use strict mode to enable or to surface concurrency related bugs in your environment. Strict mode only shows errors in the dev environment, not production environment. And start using concurrent features after upgrading to React 18. Again, I want to reiterate that most apps should work fine after upgrading to React 18 without little or no changes. And you should be able to update to React 18 in just one afternoon. Concurrent features are opt-in, and you can enable it only in the parts of the apps that you want to enable it in. One thing that I would point out is some edge cases that you should watch out for, which is that a strict mode has now become stricter, and it will throw a lot more warnings. So you can turn it on in your dev environment and see if your app has problems with strict mode. if your app is having problems, see if your app is wrapped in strict mode and try removing it. That may fix some problems. You can later re-add it when you fix the underlying issues. Overall, I think React 18 can be updated in one afternoon. I think it's an exciting update for application developers, especially because it does a lot of performance updates in the background without us having to think about it. I hope my talk gave you an inspiration on some features that you can use in your own app. Overall, this is what we talked about today: how to update, what's new in React 18, and how does your code base get affected. If you like this talk, you may like my newsletter, where I send information bits like this as well. And you can find me anywhere on the internet at Shruti Kapoor08, bit.ly/Shruti newsletter, or on my website at shrutikapur.dev. But I want to say thank you so much for coming to my talk. You have been an amazing audience. And for all of those who won the stickers, please come and get it from me afterwards. May the force be with you.